Take comfy.
Hello, guys, and welcome back to episode 14 with Adam Dowling, my coach, a really good friend, an expert in the fitness industry, and someone that I've known for a long time. And I know there has been so many people throughout my prep that has kind of been like, what happened with changing coaches? Why did you go there? How come you picked Adam? Like, how do you know each other? A lot of kind of confusion, which I understand. But for today, I really want to kind of bring you behind the scenes of a prep, reverse diet, and important things that people don't really understand or what they're kind of setting themselves up for, because there's always, I wonder if I could do it, is it for me? And I feel like this is going to really inspire a lot of people. I think it's going to open your eyes into what to expect, and then kind of help maybe you decide if this is the decision that you want to take or the road that you want to take, because it is a really big decision that you have to take and you have to really think about. But I'll let you introduce yourself, give people a little bit of an introduction into how we kind of know each other and where it all kind of started and where you're at the minute with yourself and your business and overall.
Thank you for that introduction, buddy. That's a better introduction than I could have gave myself. So yeah, my name is Adam Dowling. I'm the owner of two coaching teams, Ultimate Physiques and the Lifestyle Project. So my business is kind of split in two pathways. One of those pathways is heavily related towards the competition prep end of things, photo shoot preparations and more kind of intensive 12-week transformations. That's all under our Ultimate Physiques brand, where there's myself and I have another coach who works with me, Mark, inside that team. And then we have a second coaching team called the Lifestyle Project, where there's four of us, four coaches inside that team, and we do 6-week and 12-week transformations for the lifestyle clients as a whole. So from a coaching perspective, that's kind of where I spearhead most of my time, is into the prep end of things, working with people like Ciara and competitors, and looking for people to go down photo shoot routes, etc. And then obviously we have the offset company, which was fun to set up. I'm happy to be able to manage both of them and kind of work through both of them and apply a lot of my time into the prep end of things, which is pretty cool. What was the second part of the question you asked?
And like, where did we meet? How did we know each other? And like, how did this all like come about?
Yeah, so myself and yourself, our relationship started, God, a long time ago, but he was in 2000, I think it was the end of 2017, early 2018, when you were doing personal training out of a small gym in Malahide, and I was working in that gym, renting and doing some kind of PT hours, etc. And I think our kind of paths just crossed, and just naturally we became friends. And I think we had a lot of very common similarities and common interests in regards to our own personal progression. And I think that's probably a good kind of common ground we mutually found early on, was that I seen you as an individual who was very much so adamant about growing yourself as a coach and growing your education and growing your skill set. And that's when I was on my path of doing the same as well. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a never ending path, and we're both going to be learning and educating until we hang up the coaching boots. But that's where we kind of first started off. And I see you like listening to podcasts and going to seminars, and I was doing the same thing. So I think we just mutually kind of naturally gravitated towards each other in that degree. And then we started off coaching. I think in 2018 or 2019 was the first time we actually kicked off, and we did our first photo shoot prep together. You were my first ever photo shoot prep client, and I was your first ever photo shoot prep coach. So that was a nice way to kind of start off things together back then. Our first ever photo shoot was in the gym in Malahide with Evan Doherty. I
Yeah.
remember it like it was yesterday. And yeah, that's kind of where we kicked off, and how we got to know each other. And I just think from then it was just an ever growing relationship of coaching, then just having a good friendship, and then having a relationship as a coach to a coach, where we would like go to education seminars in the UK together, and kind of embark on that process together. And we just kind of ended up growing and evolving. And you know I always reflect back on this conversation that we had when you first told me you wanted to go online, and I had only just gone online, and we were out in the gym in Ultimate in Unique Physique when you
Yeah.
had your gym set up there. And I remember the lockdown, we were kind of getting told, right, the lockdown was about to reopen. I believe the gyms were closed at that time. And I had said to you, look, I'm not going back to the gym, I'm going fully online. And you were afraid to go online. You kept saying to me, look, I just don't think my clients are going to
Yeah.
do it. I don't think that like my because you used to do all of your check-ins in person, and I think you really loved that aspect of giving them their feedback and taking their measurements and seeing the response from them. I remember you just, I almost felt like we had this kind of like mutual leap of faith together. I was like, look, I've made the leap of faith. And you were like, right, I'm ready to make the leap of faith. And we both, I think we probably 3 or 4 months between the two of us, both jumping and both going online. And yeah, look, thank God we both trusted each
Yeah.
other and we trusted our gut instinct. And I think we just both did it at a perfect time because we were definitely ahead of the herd for
Oh,
sure. I think
yeah.
a lot of people followed suit probably a year or so after us when the gyms opened back up. A lot of people went back on the gym floor first, where luckily me and you had like a good bit of runway beforehand. But yeah, I always think back to that conversation, buddy, of how scared you were to make that jump.
I remember literally being so anti online. Like that was the attitude that I had towards it. It was more the fear. I don't even think it was the attitude because I know I can go for something and do it. But I was always like, I don't think these clients are going to come with me
Yeah.
online. Also, I actually love being in person with them. And you kept saying to me, trust me. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, I really am. I think I'm best off staying here. And that's kind of when you're at that line where it's like, should I, shouldn't I? And it's like, you either take the jump or you don't. And we did. And look at where both of us are now. And I think it really has like, it goes to show that you don't need to jump from coach to coach to coach to coach. If you're getting a result, if you love what you do, if you're learning along the way, if you're growing as a coach myself and obviously learning too, like that this is 8 years nearly down the line, which is absolutely crazy. And that's why when I was at rock bottom, for anyone that doesn't know, like on my last like 10 weeks of prep, which wasn't ideal, 8 to 10 weeks of prep, I just hit rock bottom and I was just like, I can't do it anymore. And the first person, without even normally, I text Jade over everything, like what'll I do? Like, give me advice. Do what you think? What's your opinion? I didn't even text her. I was like, I've done this. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I knew the first person that I needed to contact was you. And I knew how caring you'd be. I knew that you would just literally pick me right back up, even though right there and then I was like, I don't know what to do because I'm sure everyone knows. I was in a relationship with someone that was coaching me, and the two things were just interconnecting alongside a lot of other stress that was going on. And for me, I needed to take myself out as a competitor and put myself first. And that's where obviously I had the coach in Dubai. And I remember being so emotional. That was only a couple of weeks ago. I remember when I came home and I just couldn't even get myself together. You were like, talk to me, what is it? And I was just like I don't know. I was like I was so close to pulling out. And I think this is what I want to kind of help people with today, like emotional and the stress that comes alongside a prep. Never mind things that go on behind the scenes that you do. It's not going to be plain sailing, but you do need to have that clear runway to give yourself the time and the energy to put into becoming the best version of yourself, especially at a competitive stage prep. You know,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's like
for
a
sure.
big thing. So for me, like a lot of people kind of wondered like why I was doing it. And I know you said to me, like, here, you've basically been bodybuilding your whole life. You just never took it to that level. And when I was doing it, I know you were absolutely delighted when I rang you. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go for it. This is where I'm at, this is how many weeks out I was. But from a coach to client kind of perspective and a stage prep, what are like the fundamental basics that someone needs before even considering saying, I'm going to step on stage? Because you know me, but what about someone that doesn't know me?
Yeah. You have to have a good rhyme or reason for wanting to do it. This is not a walk in the park. You're stepping into a league and a standard now, which is the highest and greatest it's ever been. Like these girls, they do not mess around up there. This is their livelihood. This is what they do on a day to day. This is their be all and end all. And I think there's a very big difference between wanting to just do a show and get up there once and tick the box, and that's absolutely fine. And I appreciate everyone who wants to do that, and it's brilliant. And there is the other end of it where people want to be kind of active competitors and be progressive within that. So it's kind of almost like two separate conversations you want to have. If somebody's coming in, they just want to just get in and get a one and done. The things we want to look at prior to that is, okay, let's look at your surroundings first. So physically, are you in a good enough place to start a prep? Like, is this going to be a slaughter fest of a prep where you're starting off way out of shape and we have to do things that are going to be very, very difficult to get you down to that level of body composition. That's the first thing you need to look at, your start point from a body comp perspective. Then you need to look at your surrounding life. You need to look at things like your relationship, your support systems. Financially, are you in a good position? Like I always say, financially, physically, and mentally, you need to be in those three peaks to start a preparation, because if one of them is off, everything else is going to go and follow. And you know, going into it, like I said, you have to have the right rhyme or reason. You have to really want to do it, like, and it's a great journey to go down, and you learn so much about yourself, but it's a very tough process in the same context. And I don't think it's something that we want to take lightly, because there is risks that are associated with it as well. There is a lot of dangers that come with prep and bringing your body composition down to that low of a place. So if you want to go in just kind of once off, I would openly say, okay, let's look at your physique, look at your surroundings, look at your mental health first and foremost, look at your relationship with food, look at your relationship with your body image. If all of these things are in a good place, okay, let's open up that door and let's maybe pick a show a little bit later on down the line, maybe in a first timers competition like you did, or maybe in like a natural federation, which are up there as well. There's lots of other avenues you can go down. If you have the opposite conversation and you want to say, look, I want to do this long term, like I have a 3 year plan that I want to win an Irish, or I want to win an overall, or I want to get to a universe and place one of the top three, or if it's in the States, I want to do an IFBB show and win an overall, then it's a very different conversation, because we'd say, okay, let's look at the long-term implications behind this. Like, are we willing to get your bloods done now and say, okay, in 3 years' time, if we run prep to prep to prep, like, are you willing and open to say, okay, there might be some hindrances or hiccups in that blood work down the line? Are you okay with that? If they are, look, we're all grown adults here. If they are, and if they're open and willing to take that risk, then okay, that's a separate conversation that we need to have. And then that's a case of, okay, let's set a 2 or 3 year plan up. Let's go into an off season, build a ton of muscle, start off your prep, back into your off season prep, and you're kind of starting at the bottom of a very, very competitive pile, and you just got to work your way up. Like you've seen it at the show, dude. These girls are, when you see it, when you see it online, it's different. When you see them in person, it's crazy, right? You see these people, man, and they're in the bikini classes, the train bikini classes, the figure classes. These girls do not mess about it. You have to understand where you are right now and where you need to be. Like a prime example, right? I have a girl at the moment who has recently had a very, very bad eating disorder, and she's on the way out. She contacted me and said, look, in X amount, I don't care how long it takes, I would love to compete as a bikini competitor. And this is somebody who, during that eating disorder, had taken away like a substantial amount of muscle tissue off, had really gotten herself down into quite a low body weight, obviously very unhealthy, and we're building her back up. And we had a conversation 2 days ago, and she said to me, look, coach, just be honest with me, how long do you think this is going to take? And I said, I was going to say her name. I said, client, I don't care if this takes 1 year, 2 years, or 10 years. I'm committed to you to get you to the goal. All I need is you to be committed to me. And when we're committed to each other, then we can happily move to this process together. I think that's the most important thing about starting off a competition prep, is that mutual level of commitment together, that you're both embarking on this journey together, and it doesn't matter how long it takes. The safer road is the longer road. So always opt for a little bit more time. Take those extra safety precautions that you need to. And my exact response was to Ava, it doesn't matter how long it takes. If you want to be a competitor, make sure your body's in a good place. If you have to run 2 or 3 diets beforehand to get yourself into a place where prep is going to be easy enough,
Yeah.
do it. Like you'll be thankful within that. Like it kind of, we always kind of relate this back to your prep. Like you're just going to be times in everyone's prep where you have to push very, very hard, and there's going to be times where you have to pull back, and you had to push really hard at certain points, and there's always certain times where you had to pull back. So, um, yeah, just make sure you have all those kind of foundations in play first, and once they're in, then the process itself is a fairly straightforward process.
I love that. And I think the one thing that highlighted to me there was the communication thing. So it's like anything in a normal relationship, if communication isn't there, it doesn't work, and something gets missing along the lines. And that's when frustration can come in and things slow down. But when you talk about surroundings and you talk about the mental state and obviously the physical kind of position that someone's starting at, you knew where, when I contacted you, where I was at. And for me, I would never have said it, but like I was close to just leaving it. I was close to pulling back, because I was at a point where I was just like, I don't really know if this means that much to me. But then I was like, I felt like I had a point to prove to other people that I have
Like,
an
can I
immense.
ask you a question on that? Can I interview you for a second on this? Do you feel that there was an element of social pressure behind you because you had put it out there and you started to YouTube that you wanted to obviously go through with it for that reason as well?
Like I'm not, I don't give up. I'm not, I don't back off on myself at all. But my thing was I have literally said I'm doing a prep diaries. I was
Mm.
bringing out a YouTube every week and I felt like I owed Instagram and I felt like I owed my clients and these people that were following my journey that were so excited alongside me being so excited. I lost the spark after like 10 weeks and my last little stunt when you know it's the hardest. I couldn't keep going and I was just like will I keep going? Do I pull out? Like, so for me, yeah, there was a little bit of social pressure, and I never ever thought that that would have been a thing because, as I said, I'm quite strong minded. But from your perspective, when you had that first call with me, how come when you say about surroundings and like someone's mindset and where they're at, what made you say, I know you can do this, or yes, let's go? Because you knew the position that I was
Yeah.
in, the conversation that we had.
I was bringing you into my surroundings. I was now going to be that support system for you. And I knew that within my company and with me being able to be a friend and a coach, that you'll be okay. Like I think when we look at these concepts of prep, it's like we both go into a storm together. Like it's not going to be easy by any means, right? We're both going into a storm, but at the end of a storm, there's always a sunny day, and we have to go through a little bit of a battle to get to that point. But I more in that sense, I trusted my own ability to manage you and manage your expectations and manage your mindset. And I remember when I got off that call with you, the very first call we had, I said to myself, anybody could prep her for the show, but I think I'm the only person who could coach her for the show in a sense of anybody could have told you what your diet was and what your cardio. You are a robot. You are one of the most relentless people I've ever met. If I told you to run through that brick wall head first, you would say, Coach, how fast? That's the Ciara Rossi mentality. But I don't think you would have had an ability to open up to people the way you had an ability to open up to me and converse with me and talk to me and communicate with me. So it was more that sense of, do I trust myself to be a very compassionate coach and be an empath towards you? Yes, because we've been doing it for 8 years. That's never changed from our first conversations right up until our conversation we had last week or the week before. I've always been that person for you, and I've always been there for you, and I've always been able to identify when something is going right or when something's going wrong. And we always have those conversations together. So I just trusted my own ability. And like I said, when you talk about surroundings, like you're safe with me. Like I trust me and you trust me. So if we trust each other, that's all that we need. And so sometimes, buddy, you have to like remove everybody else from it. Sometimes when there is a lot of toxicity around and that individual is in an environment where they are quite exposed to that, it's your job as a coach to put your both arms around them and say, right, you come here to me. I'm going to grab a hold of you. I'm not going to let anybody else in. And I'm going to manage this. And I'm going to be the one you speak to every single day. And when something goes wrong, you contact me, you communicate me. Like this is now me and you going through this together. That was more the consensus, but I knew there was a lot of rebuilding that had to be done as well. Like I knew that when we first had that conversation, that wasn't the Ciara that I always knew. Like it was, and without any disrespect here, but you were a shell of the person that I knew to a lot of ways. Like your confidence was down, your self-belief was down. There was a lot of those things that I knew that's a part of our coaching process that we have to build back up again. And I even remember little things like when we had our first conversation, I just felt like the spark wasn't there, and I gave you your first refeed, and like 2 or 3 days later, like you were starting to come back into it, but it wasn't the refeed as a whole. It was us how we were talking about it and how we were communicating and how positive we were about the entire situation. It's like you were taken from a negative environment and brought into a positive one, and just that flip from A to B. Sometimes that's all you need to make someone be stagnant with progression to accelerate with progression, just get them to believe in themselves a little bit more. Even when we first had the conversation, I said, what's your expectation of this? And you said, I want to win. And I said, okay, we're going to win. And that was just us, like me giving you that tip of the hat to say, okay, I believe in you. And you openly being able to come to me and say, I trust in you to be able to get me there. And sometimes it's those little conversations that it's great we can speak about on a podcast because so many people don't know those intricate conversations that happen between coach and client that it was just those little things I felt really helped kind of twist you and mold you into back being the Ciara that we always knew. Yeah,
It's very special. I loved hearing that because I know it's not just a plan, your diet, your
yeah,
training, cardio. It was a lot more than that. And that was something that I really did trust you with. And I remember when I had my first call with you, you text me after and you were like, This you're not the same person. Like I can feel the energy." And I was like, "No, yeah, I am. Like, why are you saying that?" Like, obviously I'm going through, I knew by myself I was masking all my feelings and just masking everything, to be honest. And I was doing the prep to keep other people happy when I was like, I signed up for this for me. I know what I'm capable of. And as you
yeah,
said, like my mindset is always on another level. But for some reason, it was just so cloudy that the only person that could literally remove the cloud and see like that sun and that ray coming through again was you. And I can't thank you enough for that. And I know like people that are listening will say, like, oh God, I thought it was just like a coaching journey. There was so much more behind the scenes that people never really realize. And I remember I sent over a voice note and you were like, "Here, that's like the first time in a couple of weeks that I've actually heard your personality and your bubbliness come back out." And like you said, I was a shell of myself. I, on those videos, look back on those prep videos, and deep down in my gut, I was like, I'm lying. I was like, I'm not happy. Why am I doing this? And I apologize to anyone that ever did get that feeling across on the YouTube because I wanted the journey to be as special as it was meant to be. But these are the curveballs that came with it. And I've come out on the other side a totally different person. And you
yeah,
know where I'm going right now. You know what I'm doing. And
yeah,
like how fast my body responds when that stress has been eliminated and how
yeah,
check-ins run at the minute, like where I'm at, it's just a
yeah.
totally different person in comparison to the person that got on for a call.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think a big part of that as well when we had that first conversation, we wanted obviously to be very respectful of where you had just come from. And even when we first spoke about it, we said, Ciara, like, we don't expect anything to be done here socially. Like, do not ever feel the need to post anything about this. We'll just crack on with our prep. Me and you will just work in the background, like we've always done. That sometimes that coaching relationship style works so much better because when everything is printed all over social media, it just creates unnecessary drama and unnecessary opinions on things that just don't need to be there. Look, you came to me because you needed help. It's my job as a friend, first and foremost, to help you. And I think even us just having that, again, like you're coming into my world, I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to look after you, we're going to do this my way. And my way was nothing goes on social media. We
Yeah.
work behind the scenes together. And look, you got to look at it from a coach's perspective. Like you are a gem of a client to get because you have a massive following, you've all these things. That was me putting our friendship first and foremost. Say, look, I don't want anything in return from this. I just want to be here to help you. And I want to be here to do whatever I can to be here for you and get you to that end goal of like I said, where we had that conversation before of we did our first photo shoot prep together. We did your first stage prep together. It's like we started this thing, we finished this thing. That's a beautiful process to be able to go through with somebody and over such a long time period as well. It's special. But yeah, those little conversations are great to reflect back now and talk about, aren't they?
Really, they are. And it makes you just look back on the journey and be like, I just love that so much. And the person that's kind of molded me into right now and where I am and everything, it really is crazy. And it's so special for sure. And that was something that I really respected as well, that you were like, listen, like, and also for me, I was like, I'm not doing this right now to prove to anyone else. I was posting my
Yeah,
journey, I was showcasing it. No one knew who I was coaching with. Everyone was very curious because I knew they knew. But the thing for me was like you could have said like, oh, like tag me in that or do this or do that, especially if I've got a following or you
mm,
knew like say people would want to join in and say if that's what you look like, a lot of people want to join
yeah,
the wagon and they want to do it, so they
yeah,
will go to the coach. But you were like, no, you don't. I don't broadcast this anywhere. Just do it for you. And
mm,
I was just like, for someone to actually care more about you than them and what they're going to get in return from it, it just goes to show your passion and where it lies for a client. And I think that's probably the most special thing about obviously your coaching company, that you're not just another number. We're not just coming in to post a result, that you actually care. And I
yeah,
think caring stands to you no matter what you do. Community caring and having that service alongside it, the
yeah,
result will come. It's inevitable, and you will love every part of the journey. And
yeah,
that's exactly what I did.
yeah. You got to make every or try to anyway make every client feel like they're your only client. You
Yeah.
know. Like even little things like check-ins. What was my longest response time to you for a check-in? Like 10 minutes or
Yeah.
so throughout that entire prep process. But and that's just because you got to put yourself into that position of being there for them at all costs, and just being selfless to some degree. And just making sure you can take care of them. I think coaching as a whole, you got to look at like the why behind coaching so much. I know we were going to talk about that today, but like the why behind coaching is about caring for those individuals and putting them before you. Like I always love that analogy of like the coaches on the sideline, the athletes on the field. Like they're the ones who are doing what they need to do. Your job is to stand behind them and support them at every single opportunity you have. You're not on the field with them. It's not about you. You're not a part of this equation. It's about them. You let them shine. You let them do what they have to do, and you just support through whatever way you possibly can.
Yeah, I think even with when you have a strong why like that, like even with my girls when they're doing photo shoot preps, like it's not about me today. This is all about you.
Yeah.
Like you want it nearly more than that actual person. Like you're as engrossed in the journey, like you're with them alongside it, that when the rewards come, you're just like so fulfilled. And I think both of us get that much happiness. You can see like by our facials.
Mhm.
Like we
Mhm.
go to these events, we're inspired to be there. We want to learn, we love having like-minded conversations. You know the energy, you know how good it feels when you help someone get that transformation, even mentally, when someone
Yeah.
is, I'm in so much more control this week, this is how I feel, you feel good. And it's like, I think as a coach, if you don't have that and you're always chasing sales and money or whatever else it is on the business side of things, you're not going to be truly fulfilled. And for us as coaches, from people that have come 10 years in the industry, like we love helping people. It's what gives us, well, for me, and I know for you, that's the why. But like on a deeper level, like why do you do it all? That was one of the questions that I had for you
Yeah.
at the end. But while we're on this topic now, like why do you do it all?
I think it changes massively, like
Yeah.
across the time of working in the industry. Like we said, when you first get into coaching, it's about just trying to help people. And I always felt if I wasn't a coach in bodybuilding and in fitness, I would have been a coach in something. Because I just always have that desire to help people through a process, no matter what it would have been. I always felt like I would have fallen into something. But I think it's probably easier to answer this with like a scenario rather than an actual, because when I try to say it, it doesn't really make sense. So if I look at like the people that I work with, and I do tend to work with people for quite a long time period, and the processes that we go through, I think that's my why. Like it's the process of taking somebody from a starting position to a finish point, right? And I'll use Julia as a prime example. So just as Jewel on Instagram, one of my longest term clients, she's with me almost 3 years now. Julia first came to me, it would have been 2.5 years since when she first came, when she did her first show season. When she first came to me, she said, "Look, I want to compete, but I don't know how to do it, or I don't know what I need to do to get there. Like I'm just trusting in you to kind of help me with this." I was like, "Okay, let's start this process and let's just kind of see where we go." So we did a photo shoot prep, then we did a building phase, did a second photo shoot prep, then did a building phase, then went into our first competition prep. Now this is building up to 2 years working together for that moment of like getting her on stage. And dude, I remember I flew to Texas. It was in Houston, and being with her at the show and backstage, seeing her pump up. We just had a very quick conversation before she went on stage, and it was just about the process that we went through, and that like mutual commitment that we had to each other. Like 2.5 years has led to this moment. Like you're 30 seconds now from walking out. You're hand up, you're bronzed up. It's like when you're behind that curtain and me and you are standing there. It's like it's an intense moment, right? It's excitement, it's fulfilling. You're waiting for your name to be called to walk out. And we just had that conversation of, look, you did it. Like you got to this point, and she went out. She won her novice class, she won her open class, she won the overall, took the entire show. And when she came off that stage, we just had this big hug, and we didn't say anything. Like there's no word said, but we just both knew like we did it. Like we both committed to each other, we both committed to the process. We did it. And if you're to ask me like what's my why, that's my why. It's processes like that and it's moments like that that are very hard to get, but when they're there, they're incredible. We had a client last year, Sinead Moran, who very similar but a different scenario, had competed multiple times before, competed in 2017, competed a couple of years ago and never won a show. And she came to me and said, "Look, Adam, I wanna win. This is my last time ever competing. Like I wanna go out there, I wanna win." it's a lot of pressure on a coach to put because bodybuilding is subjective and things kind of flip flop, as we all know up on stage. But we started off our prep last year and the same thing. First show came second, got an invite to the universe, went to the universe, came sixth, which is a huge, absolutely massive achievement. And your third show, Irish Open, got up there, absolute madness of a class. It was like 11 or 12 girls in the class, and she won. She came first. And again, that, it's like, buddy, when you walk through that backstage curtain, I'm the first person you see. And me and you had that big hug backstage as well. And I had that with her. And it's like the same thing. Nothing needs to be said, but it's that, like, I'm thanking you for trusting in me, and she's thanking me for applying what I needed to do inside that prep to get her to that goal. And leading into that show, there's a lot of pressure. Are we going to have excitement or disappointment at the end of this? It's either going to be a win or a loss. A second place is a loss to her. Like, she wants to win this. And when what it's like when you're in your top three, there's three of you at the bottom,
Yeah.
and you're just waiting for your name to be called. You get called out in third, and there's two, and it's either going to be you or her. And when we heard the girl came out second place, and obviously Sinead was the winner, it's those moments that, as a coach now, like you ask me my why, it's like it's those moments in the smelly auditoriums full of fake tan, full of people walking around glazed up. Like, when you get those moments, it's it's undescribable to say, because there's such a long process to get there. And their process is filled with highs and lows. Their process is filled with wins and losses. But when it gets right, and just when everything clicks together and all the stars align, you can't write it. It's the best feeling in the world. If you ever have an opportunity or a chance to put someone through that process, buddy, jump at it, because it's just magical, absolutely magical.
It's really it's like giving back on a different level, and both parties feel it, that they're just like,
Mm,
wow. And I seen you at the show, obviously up in Derry, and I seen the bubble that you were in and how
mm,
happy you are and how you were going around. I'm like, he is thriving off this. Like, I
mm.
could see you looking at us in the mirror, pumping up, being like, yeah, cool, do this, do that. But you were so in the zone that you were like, I love this. And I think
Yeah,
it's the journey, the passion, everything that comes with it, that the emotions on the side and the stressful moments and maybe the weeks here and there that don't go as smooth as they're meant to be, they're the things that, like, they don't even phase you at the end. It's just like, that was so worth it. There's always, like what you said, there's always going to be peaks and valleys. It's always going to be up and down. And it's just about riding the wave together and knowing that if you've given it your all, if you know on that day you get up there, and even if it's not a stage prep, even a photo shoot journey,
yeah,
like,
of course.
it's the process that you're just so happy and fulfilled from.
Process is the same. Like, even when we're talking about this, like, stepping on stage doing a photo prep, that's just the end destination. Even just a lifestyle client or a transformation, you all go through the same thing. Like, there's no magic diet or magic cardio protocol that a prep client gets that a lifestyle client doesn't. It's all linked into the same. And it's that process that, we say all the time, it's not product focused, it's process driven. And you have highs and lows, but I think the a good aspect of a coach is having that ability to remove them when the stressors come up, and when you have those bad weeks, you have that ability to step in and make everything okay. It's like the negatives and the bads just disappear, and make the client feel very comfortable and safe in those environments. And even at that backstage, like, we had four girls up that day. Every single one of you, your first time on stage, obviously with a first time show. Each one of you were absolutely shitting yourselves. But for me to say I wasn't nervous would be a lie. Of course I'm nervous. I've got massive, like, expectations for all of you coming into this. I want you all to do very, very well. But you just got to be able to be the calm one in the room. And you're the one that dictates how the day goes. And they vibe off your energy. If you're a nuisance at the show and you're running around like a lunatic and you're very high stressed and anxiety driven, like, your job is to make it as enjoyable as possible for them, make it as memorable as possible, in the sense that they want to look back at those moments. Like, even the little things that we have, those images of us backstage and we're getting your pump up done, and, like, you have those little moments you can capture, but the emotion that's attached to them has to be of happiness, regardless of how the outcome of the day goes. Like, with bodybuilding is massively subjective, and it's a comparable sport, and the judges either love you or hate you, and it is what it is. But the process leading into it, you want every single part of that to be remembered as enjoyable and as a happy process. And I think that's why, as a coach, when the shit does hit the fan and when it does get stressful, you do have that ability to squash it straight away and remove it and push past it, because when they think back, they don't think back about the negative weeks. It's all about the happiness and the positive that came throughout the prep.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. It just literally summed it all up. And I think when you look back on those photos, even side stage of all of us, they're the things that you
Oh,
go, that was just so fun. That was just so worth it. That
special. It's a
yeah,
special. They're special
it
days.
really was. Yeah, for sure. And it's people that don't see it on the outside, they don't understand what you go through over like that certain amount of period. And people don't really understand why. They think you're absolutely crazy to put your body through something like that. But for me, I feel like discipline, that relentless attitude, that resilient mindset, that takes you many places in life, not just on a stage. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you agree with that as well. You know, like there's so many different things that you learn about yourself along the way that you discover that you're like, didn't know I could do this. You feel, I genuinely feel after doing that prep, I feel unstoppable. And people were like, I struggled, like, you know what it was like after the week, and that was normal. And you were just like, listen, like, that's normal, Ciara. That's how you're gonna feel. And that was just that little reminder to me that, like, you know what I'm like. I needed to be like, I need my structure, my routine. You were like, that sometimes not being so hard on yourself, yes, discipline, but just knowing that like things change and you're not getting up on the stage, you're not going to be at that body percentage right now, but that's okay as well. And that was something that I can say hand on heart that I was like the week after, I was like, oh my God, I am fuming with myself. And you were like, Ciara, you didn't sit down and have a big pizza, you didn't order a Chinese and sit there all night. He was like, you had a cookie and you went out and you had your meal and you were maybe picking at things here and there. He was like, you said to me, you were literally like, it's not a big deal, relax. But I was freaking out because
Yeah.
I had this idea of perfection after, which
I think that's a lot of your character, though. Like your character, you are a perfectionist in everything that you do, and you do have a lot of those perfectionist tendencies across everything, like with your business, with your training, with your nutrition, like everything that you do. And I think for you, when you don't have that in play, it is quite stressful and it feels like things are a little bit manic. But like we said in that conversation, you didn't do anything wrong and you didn't have a bad rebound. Like you're in a great place now. We're able to, move into some other avenues and kind of move towards more exciting things kind of now coming up in the very near future that we're able to press toward because you had an ability to recover from it. Because that post prep period is a very difficult time to manage for a lot of people. It's like there's such an escalation and accumulation of excitement for this day, and it's either going to go the way you wanted or the way you didn't. And if it goes the way you wanted, you have this huge excitement and it's an anticlimax. If it doesn't go the way you wanted, you just automatically have that anticlimax. But regardless of both, they're going to head in one direction, and that's down, and then it's into a position where you don't know where you're going. And again, it's sometimes it's quite different when you have maybe other shows to look forward to because you can kind of like recoup for a day and you're back on prep again. You have another show in 2 weeks, and you recoup and you're back on prep, another show in 2 weeks, and that can help to some degree. But the same thing when all the shows are over, everyone feels like they're just staring down this road and they don't know where they're going or what's happening. They have no goal anymore. Um, but we always have to understand like these goals, whether it's a photo shoot prep or it's a bodybuilding prep, they're a very, very small percentage of your life. Like when you actually break it down, like you're on prep for the most part 5 months, you're alive for the guts of 80 years, like let's not let 5 months really dictate like who you are and dictate where your vision is and where you feel like you need to be. Because a lot of people have that, I feel like my life is over now because prep is over. Well, if prep was 5 months of your life up to this point, like give yourself a week or two, you're going to be okay. Like
yeah,
you will find something else for you to do. You'll be fine. But everybody feels that way. And I understand it. I respect it. I think obviously I've walked this walk many times myself. I've been in those shoes and we all feel that way. But that's why it's nice to have just an immediate redirection to a new goal, almost instantaneously. Like just get something else to be focused on and just head in that direction. It does help.
totally agree. It's always like, well, what's next? You don't need to go into this dump and be like, oh my God, like I feel like I've nothing to look forward towards. Yes, you do. It's always the mindset and the perspective on what's next. There's
Mm.
always what's next. There's always something that you can be doing. But when you look at like reverse diet, and that's something that even people that are lifestyle clients that are doing, how important is a reverse diet post show, and how have you kind of dealt with like, no, I wouldn't say bad rebounds or anything like that because like
Mm.
every client is different. But how is it emotionally, physically, even on your body? Can you summarize that up for listeners? Because I know they're like here, like the reverse diet, like how do you do that? That sounds
Yeah.
like that's the part that you would fear. So could you even like in probably short term, how would you sum
Yeah.
that up, which is quite probably complex?
Yeah. Yeah. So like to really brief like, explain it, like you're reversing out of a dieting process. So what you have to do is reverse engineer back to the start of your diet. What did that look like? Okay, food was high, cardio was low. as your diet went on, those lines crossed as an X shape. And when you get to the back end of a prep, usually food is down low and cardio is up high. From a reverse diet, you have to make that switch again. So you have to gradually build the two of them in the opposing directions of slowly moving food up and slowly tapering cardio back down again. The first thing we need to look at that there is no set protocol for a reverse diet because every single person is going to manage this so differently that we need to act as a chameleon in this sense of addressing the issue that's being presented in front of you on that given day and you acting towards that. So we would have, clients that say at the back end of their prep, they're on 1300 calories. Now I could bring them up to 1550 or even 1600 calories and they're fine. There's no issues, there's no food focus, there's no emotional stress or attachment. They're okay, they understand logically about what they have to do, and they have that very good ability to remove emotion away from the nutritional aspect and the food aspect, and they're fine. Then you have clients who would have a slightly higher emotional response, and their logical thinking wouldn't necessarily be at this. And I think this is when experience comes into play quite a lot because the more you bring yourself through this process, the less focus you have on higher food at the end. Like I want a brilliant quote someone said to me before of your focus is food, your focus is wrong. And I love that quote at the back end of a prep because they are right. Like if the one thing you're going towards is food as a reward and you're constantly feeling that need to, eat off plan and have meals off plan, like maybe is your focus wrong? Like maybe is this not the thing for you? If you find it that difficult to stick to your plan post prep and just feeling overly consumed with that needing that desire and that emotionally driven response of having to eat, maybe this isn't for you. Like if your focus is food, your focus is wrong. I love that one. So we have other ends of the spectrum then when we might check in with people and they're just their want and desire for food is quite high. So we'd have to immediately bring their food back up again, immediately drop their cardio, and you're looking at kind of two separate ends of a reverse then. Like example number one, the client who can go up 200 or 300 calories and will take 25 minutes off her cardio and she's fine. For her, it's like a ladder effect, her or him, like a ladder effect where we set the plan, then we move it up a little bit, and then we hold. We move it up a little bit more, then we hold. And we're kind of using like a stairs. We're gradually tipping up, holding, tipping up, holding. And not what we're trying to do there essentially is allowing the metabolism to get a nice positive boost. When metabolic regulation starts to increase and fire again, ghrelin, the hunger signaling response, will usually start to drop. So ghrelin and metabolism function will always have a kind of a like for like pathway. So that's why at the back end of prep, people's hunger signaling is so high because their functionality of their metabolism is so low because your metabolism always follows food. So if you look at it's called metabolic upregulation or metabolic downregulation, it's how the metabolism follows energy balance, basically. If you have high food, low cardio, your metabolic function is extremely high. If you have low food, high cardio, metabolic function will follow food, so it'll be down quite low. So we're trying to just get the body gradually kind of moved up those stairway effects. Or you could have people where you have to ramp it up straight away just to try to get the metabolism fired up as quickly as possible to try to get that response of ghrelin, the hunger signaling hormone, as low as possible. So they're both very, very different and they both need to be managed quite differently. The first one, you don't need much psychological coaching there because there's not really an issue that's being presented. The second, we're just trying to remove whatever aspect of food focus we can. But as I said, sometimes us as coaches, we have a duty of care, but then you also have to put a lot of that responsibility onto the client. Like we write the plan. I'm giving you your reverse to follow it. It's up to you if you follow it or not. I can't hold your hand 24/7. I can't be there beside you. And I don't mean that in a condescending or a patronizing way. I'm just being as honest as possible. I can't like eat your food for you and make sure that every gram of food is eaten. Like you have to have that ability yourself to have responsibility on yourself to either follow this or not. If you follow it, you'll have a good rebound. It's written in stone. If you don't follow it, you won't have a good rebound. And that's just a choice that you're going to consciously have to make after a prep. I always will look at a prep across three parts. The pre-prep phase is getting you ready to prep. You then prep and you have a post-prep phase where you get out of the prep. And it's in that post-prep phase where people are either in or they're out. And it's down to them more or less. I would love to give like a very just one straight direct answer to that of this is how you reverse. But like, let's say on the day that you competed, we have four of you competing in that show and two in the States. So six competitors on stage, and every single one of you guys had a different reverse diet because each one of your needs were very, very different. That's six different approaches with six different people, with six different mindsets, with six different attitudes and focus points. It's very much so individualized, but they would be the usual two camps you'd see people sit in, and you just have to just try to navigate as best you possibly can as a coach, put the responsibility onto them. I think communication is quite important post prep as well. Like just not letting your communication completely drop because you've gone from checking in, you know, two or three times per week from maybe 6 weeks out to almost every single day from 4 weeks out. And then when you're like 2 weeks out, it's like maybe twice a day. When you're 1 week out, it's multiple times per day. On peak week, like, oh God, how many times did we check in on peak week? We must have checked in about 250 times across peak week. Like easily. That,
It's- oh my God, it's ridiculous. And when that's taken out, like I can
of
see how if you're not very not
course, yeah.
independent, but if you haven't got that strong kind of mindset or you don't really know where you're going or what you're doing next, you can feel very lost. And I'm sure,
Yeah.
as you said to me, I brought my mom to my shoot with me and we enjoyed it. And you were like, "Do you know what? That's so nice because bodybuilding is extremely isolating and lonely." And you are dead right about that because it's a lonely sport. This is not a
Yeah.
team game. You're a team with you and your coach, but at the end of the day, behind closed doors, you can't see what they're eating. You don't know whether they're getting it done. And at the end of the day, you can play a guessing game with someone, but you know deep down when you go backstage, you'll know by someone's face. That's how I used to know, even with the dancing, even with exams, even with how someone is at an interview. You know the people that aren't prepared, and you know the people that didn't give it their all because their face and their energy shows, and they're insecure, and they're like. Whereas I knew I was like, I gave it my all. Now I'm buzzing. I enjoyed side stage, the pump. Like you seen how we reacted.
No.
We were
I think they could hear you from Dublin when you came back.
we were the most hyper people in that building that we just enjoyed every moment because you said to me, okay, we need to sit down and put our feet up and you need to just enjoy it and just relax a little bit because I knew I can enjoy every single minute. I can embrace what has kind of gone on. I can see the people that are around me and I can be present. And when you're not present and when you're thinking in the back of your head, what more can you do? It's too late, a little
Yeah.
too late, and you can't do anything. So I think that is like a really good answer for reverse. Same with diet, and obviously it's a little bit different because a prep is a lot more extreme. But same thing, it depends on someone's lifestyle, it depends on their surroundings, it depends on what they're doing next. But out of from your opinion, do you feel like there should be a little bit more support and guidance there for people post show? Or do you think that the coach is in charge of that? Or do you think people should have females in general, even males, should have more of a support system or no?
Yeah, no, of course, because it's a very hard place to be. You know, your goal has been removed. You know, physically now, your body is going to start reversing itself. So inside of a reverse diet as well, you are now changing energy balance. So you're telling your body it's okay to put on fat mass now. Like it's okay for that pendulum of, right, the scale has been swinging to the side of weight loss. Now, right, we're going to very gradually swing it back to the side of weight gain. That has to happen post show. So I think yes, there does need to be, but I think there needs to be a very a fine balance because you look at it from a coach's perspective. The way I run it, like leading into a peak week, like we said, we checked in like oh my god, probably 250 times across peak week. Like easily, we were checking in after every single meal. At one point, we probably sent over 1,000 text messages back and forth. Like I probably spoke to you more than I spoke to my fiance and my kids on peak week. Like that's so a commitment as a coach, and I had six of you on peak week that weekend. Um, but when you go from that, then you as a coach, like you need to have a focus. Okay, post prep, right? Have your day off on the Monday, check in with me on the Tuesday, and then check in with me maybe on the Thursday, and check in with me on the Sunday. Like you have to wean them off that as well because they do become quite dependent on that. Like they do become quite dependent on that level of communication. But you can offer support in many other ways. You know, of course you can. Do I think there needs to be other structures in place? Kind of yes and no. Again, depends on what they're going through. Like some people can do a prep and like Stacey, who you compete in the same show as you, like Stacey right now is like on top of the world. She's loving it. More field in the system. So excited. She's competing again in September, and the November show is like for her. I don't need to do anything. Like I just need to give her a plan. We check in on a Monday and a Thursday. We speak kind of sporadically in between, just as like normal coach and client do. Little text messages here and there, but we don't need to do anything more. Then there is other people where there will be more support that has to be brought in, but it's different kinds of support. Like you may need to go and get blood work done. There might be an issue on blood work that needs to be helped and assisted. There may be some other factors there around their mentality or around, their physicality that might need to be addressed as well. There might be issues with their food that might need to be addressed. Like there's a lot of other aspects of support that could potentially come in. Then, that you have people who would have a brilliant prep, but they have a terrible support system and they have a terrible environment. So after the show, I was like, right, coach, how do I fix this? And I go, well, now I'm turning into like a family counselor as well. But you're just trying to like offer yourself in whatever way you can to help these individuals. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're just trying to help them get past issues that might have come up in a prep. So there's, like I said, you're a chameleon as a coach to some degree. You just adapt to what's in front of you, and the support comes at many different layers, whether it's physically, whether it's from a health perspective, whether it's mentally, whether it's with their lifestyle or their fat. Like there's going to be so many other ways we can look at that. I don't think there would be like a body of support in, because it's quite individual, and it's quite a personal thing as well. Like only really yourself and your coach know what happened during that prep. So it's kind of up to the two of you guys to support, yeah, and get yourself out.
Think that's what makes you a great coach, definitely,
Mhm.
because not one approach suits all. And you
Yeah,
can't
no.
go into it with that. And you need to look, and you also need to have empathy. And that's something that I feel like has a little bit of stigma around it, that a male coach hasn't got empathy, they don't care about you. If anything, it's the opposite. Like the care
Yeah.
and support and the empathetic side that I've got from you, and the support has been level, like next to none. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And I think people are like, if you have a male coach, they don't understand. You understand more about the female body, the hormones, what goes on more than anyone. Sure, we got on 2 weeks ago with my team. We were going through some training and just educating ourselves that little bit more. And when you look at how intrigued you are by the female body, and even touching on things that we did, like the contraceptive pill, and how it can be looked at in like a bad way with like the drug side of things, and whether it's natural federation or if it's not, it is all someone's choice and someone's goals before anyone kind of jumps down anyone's neck. It's like that is their choice and their decision, and no matter who it is, I think you go through that decision of like, right, well, is this the road that we're taking or is it not? And that's that person's decision. And there's a lot of shaming around it as well. Like bodybuilding is a sport. These people are on a different level, and I have the utmost respect for the highest level of bodybuilders, because these people, like, honestly, like, I think if you can bodybuild and if you can have that level of discipline, you can do a lot of things. Would you
So
agree?
yeah, it's by far the hardest, most disciplined sport of all. Like it's not even a comparison to it, because it consumes every single aspect of your being. Like it consumes everything. And if you're never around it, you don't know. Like I'm sure even the videographer that you had to record all your YouTube, like I'm sure even he was like, there's not a second of your day that doesn't need to be accounted for on a prep. Like every meal measuring your sodium, every meal measuring your water, every gram of everything that goes in your body, to your supplementation, to your like, there's not one thing we do that does not get managed or measured during your day, that no other sport has that. And just to like reverse that back when you were speaking there about empathy, like I think from a coach's perspective, there's kind of two different male coaches that you have, right? You have your kind of more direct, like drill sergeant approach to a coach, who they say jump, you say how high, and there's no need for compassion or empathy with them, because they have a one way of coaching, and that works amazing for some. But I think being compassionate just comes down to your character. Like I've always been a very compassionate person, and you can't, that's I think one aspect of coaching that you can't teach. If
Yeah,
you're not a compassionate person, don't try to be. If
yeah,
you're not an empathetic person, don't try to be, because number one, it's going to come across as unauthentic. And if you're trying to be there for somebody, when you don't actually want to be there for them, but you feel like you have to do it because it's a part of your job, that's not going to reflect well. Like you have to, I feel as a coach, you have these like senses, right? And you just pick up on things and you know when somebody actually needs you
Yeah.
and when they don't. All right. We'll give an example of this. We checked in once and you sent me over your pictures and the first message of that, I was like, she's not, no, something not right here. And I picked up the phone, I rang you and I said, champ, what's going on? You said to me, I'm not your champ today. And I remember that. I remember that the exact word you said to me, I'm not a champ today. And you were got upset on the phone and something had happened and we just needed to talk it through. But it was that instinct of reading one. I didn't even read the message you sent me. I just read the one line and I was like, no, 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 no. I just drop whatever I was doing, pick up the phone, ring. A lot of my clients listening to now would have gotten that phone call off me before. When something has happened, you just pick up the phone and ring. That's being an empathetic coach. It doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. If your team needs you, you fucking show up.
Yeah.
And there's so many coaches out there that would have just texted you back, oh, sorry, bud, you're not having a good day. We'll check in tomorrow. Hope you're okay.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between being a true empath and actually being able to be there for someone and knowing when someone needs you versus not. And look, not everyone needs that approach, but when you deal with predominantly female clients, they like to have that little bit of reassurance just to know that my coach is here for me and he does care about me. And if he feels like that something is wrong, it's not a text message that I'm going to get back off and like the phone's going to ring a couple of minutes after I send that message and he's going to be on the other end of that line and he's going to make sure that I'm okay. And that's a very reassuring thing for someone to have going through a process like this.
And I actually only spoke about that on Enya's podcast last
Mm,
time. The phone rang, and when it was ringing, I was like, I'm not picking that up. Like, I'm not, like, I'm not actually at home at the minute. But I think it's like you can't wear a mask. Like, you don't wear a mask. What you see is what you get, and you genuinely care. And that's like a big thing for like females. I feel like 99% of us, I think the 1% can take the do it sergeant
yeah, of
major approach, but we are girls,
course.
we're females, we love to be supported, we like to have feelings, like that's who we are in our nature, that's
Yeah.
what we're made of. And it's like if you have that approach like what you do here, it's a totally different feeling and a totally different experience because you do feel like you're being heard and you feel like someone is there to support you. If you fall, I've got you. It's not if I fall, pick yourself back up and move on. Okay,
Mm.
right. Well, how am I going to do that? But I just love how we're kind of summarizing everything, and I hope people are getting a really good insight into what really goes on behind the scenes, what the journey entails. And I always like to finish the podcast on two questions. We've kind of already went into the why, but the second one is more of two kind of parts here. So the first one is, what advice would you give to someone that is thinking of doing first timers or doing a prep and getting on stage, but has never done a photo shoot, has never done anything like that before? What advice would you give to them? And then secondly, what advice would you give to someone that's just qualified as a personal trainer or wants to go online? Do you recommend floor work first, or what's your opinions?
Yeah. So the first one would be number one, hire a coach that you know they care about you on a very deep level. Like they are quite invested in your process because within our coaching space, particularly from a prep coaching, if you're a first timer going up for your first timer show, you are inevitably at the bottom of the food chain. In a lot of those coaches' teams, you want to make sure you have someone who is there for you and wants to care for you. Hire a coach that has a proven track record. So if like let's say for us, I predominantly work inside the bikini division. I feel like I know that division inside out, like the back of my hand. I'm very well versed and very well understood of that division and what's needed. So if you want to do men's physique, you wouldn't hire me for men's physique. If you wanted to do classic bodybuilding, you wouldn't hire me because it's just not, I'm not a jack of all trades and I don't think coaches should be. So if you're going to hire a coach who is a specialist in that area that you want to go in and speak to him or her, do a consult, speak to previous clients that they've worked with, and just get a good understanding of that. That's probably the most important part because no matter what else we say from here, it's going to be dictated by what that coach does. So you got to put trust in that individual. You got to put your everything into them, but just knowing that they have the same mutual respect and understanding of your process and they want it just as much as you do, and they'll be there for you on your first show, and they'll make sure that they're there in person, which is very, very important. I don't think a lot of people understand how important that is for a coach to be there in person for their individuals, especially if they're not competing in a team and they're competing on their own and they're going to these individuals, or they're going to these venues, which is very daunting to someone who's never been there before. And just do it for the right reasons. Like everyone has a why, and I think every person has an individual reason as to why they've done a prep. And so many times I've gone through these processes with people never knowing why. And we get to the end of it and like something would come up and you're like, I wish you would have told me that sooner, but it's great that you did it because of this. We had a girl in last season, not season gone, the season just before that, and her dad passed away 4 weeks out from her show. 4 weeks out, and her dad passed away. And there was just little things like her and her dad used to have this like thing about blue butterflies, and she got a blue butterfly put onto the inside of her bikini, and on her robe she had the blue butterfly, and there was those little things that happened in the prep that was a big why for her, and that was a big driver. So if you have something like that, whether maybe it was a bit of an insecurity that you had, or you might have been in a relationship in the past and it was quite toxic, and you wanted to use this prep to do it for you, like have a personal goal that you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to invest all this time into yourself. Nothing wrong with that. Anybody who says that doing a personal goal is not the right thing to do, please just listen to myself, listen to Ciara. We've done it for ourselves. We've done it to mutually thousands of people now. It's the best investment you'll ever make. But just vocalize it with your coach about why you're doing it. Yeah, I think that summarizes that.
Sure, yes, definitely. And if there's no why, you'll know that you will lose sight along the way
Yeah.
and you will not be happy and you'll feel like you've been made do it nearly. And you're like, why did I put myself through it? You always have to have the why of why you started, why you're getting going. Same with a business, anything that you're doing in life has to be a why. So I love that. What about someone that's after qualifying with their personal training? Do you recommend floor work first? Because obviously both of us have come from that. Or do you recommend online?
Um, yeah, I think it really depends on like where you want to go and what you want to do. It really does. I was very fortunate that throughout my time of working on gym floors and being on gym floors, I met two people who were extremely influential in regards to building character in me as a coach and as a person. And I met them on gym floors in those type of environments. Like my first ever boss, Brian Hickey, who was a prep coach and is one of Ireland's leading prep coaches at the time. He used to run a very small PT facility. And as my first ever job, I got with him, and he used to run his prep business out of there. So I would see like Dean St. Mark come in for his check-ins, Larry Doyle come in for his check-ins, Alan Kelly, aka, come in for their check-ins, Dara Curley, all these people like who are really high up in our industry now used to always come into Brian's office, and I'd be like coaching Mary how to do a back squat, and I was just so intrigued by that. I
Wow.
loved it, but I put myself into that environment because I knew that that would be influential to me, and I knew that that would have such a profound like effect on me, and I kind of allowed myself to get quite involved with Brian in a sense of what he was doing, and that just spiraled me into where I wanted to really go. So that hugely influenced me. But the reason why I'm saying that, because when I was in that environment, every single Tuesday we'd sit down, we'd have a team meeting every Tuesday. And Brian was at the time a heavyweight bodybuilder, one of the scariest people I've ever seen. I'm even to this day, I get nervous every time I see. There's actually a very funny photograph. Remember where we did like our check-ins when we first went into the dairy show in that like upstairs landing? Brian was competing last Sunday and I was there, and Usheen took photos of me and Brian talking, and I looked so nervous when I
I
was standing there
love that.
talking to him. I was like, my body language is so off. I was like,
I,
oh no. But because I have so much respect for him, and
yes.
being in that environment, working under a good coach, I gained that respect from him. And every Tuesday we used to have a team meeting, and he used to ask us, right, what's the last podcast you've listened to, the last book you've read, what's the next course you're going to do? And it was drilled into us from a very early age that education is the most valuable asset you have. Your brain is your biggest muscle as a coach. That is the most valuable thing you will ever learn, because this process, as we bring clients through, it's about understanding. It's about understanding the mechanisms of everything. You can be the best promoter, the best marketer in the world. If you don't have a good grasp and understanding of what coaching really is, we're dealing with people. We're dealing with individuals that have hormonal issues, joint issues, muscular issues, blood work issues, nutritional issues, digestive issues, sleep issues, if you don't have a great understanding of all, you are not delivering the service that your clients actually need from you. And you're probably portraying something that you don't actually have the best understanding of. And I don't mean to sound like belittling to anybody who doesn't understand these things. I just think in today's day and age, people don't prioritize their education. They prioritize building a business and building their Instagram more than they prioritize building their catalog of education. Like if we were to sit down and talk to people about Instagram algorithm, they'd be like, yeah, I can know that from start to finish. Okay, talk to me about microbiome and gut health. They're like, I don't know. And this is probably a problem in today's world, but that was in environment that I was in quite early on a gym for, they influenced me massively. Do you know that the second person in that conversation is Lenny Murphy? Lenny
Wow.
Murphy, dude, was probably one of the most influential people I've ever met in my whole life. Just as from what you can be as a bodybuilder, a bodybuilding coach, and a family man. Like that man is just such a gentleman. Like, do you ever see when he's behind the desk and Lorraine and Amy walk into the gym, he like perks up and runs over and has hugs and kisses. And because I have a family, like I used to see that, and that was such an influence on me, like to look. And Lenny was an unbelievable father figure to me and really helped me out a lot in my bodybuilding and in my coaching and helped me get a job with Brian. And like he'd done so much for me. But even being in those type of environments around people that you respect, I think that's what coaches today need. They need to be around people that they respect. And like, look, we're very fortunate that myself and yourself, we have coaching teams. And if people were looking to get into an industry and they're looking to maybe move online, luckily enough, there are avenues and opportunities where they have people like myself and yourself who do have coaching teams that can, take people on, and working under someone for a couple of years is probably the best thing in the world you can do. I wouldn't recommend going online and just starting straight away without some type of experience working for somebody else, because you have to be accountable to somebody. Like I remember my first 2 years working for Brian, every diet that I sent or training program that I sent, I had to show him first. I wouldn't be allowed to send an email until I ran it by him. And every little nuance of that plan was questioned. And it was, okay, why is this here? And why is that there? And why have you put this food and not that food? And why did you put this supplement and not that one? But it made me have an ability to answer informatively and be able to discuss solutions to problems that I felt were valid at the time from the research that I was able to do, and putting yourself into that environment. Even now within my coaching teams, we do that. I will look at like Mark, one of my coaches under Ultimate Physiques. He has a peak coming up with his photo shoot prep client this week. And we jumped in a call and I, made him run through his entire peak process with me. And I questioned absolutely everything. I didn't question it to make him feel that he was doing something wrong. I just wanted to know that he understood the process as well as I understand it. And he killed it. His peak was flawless. Not one issue across his peak. It was absolutely perfect. And at the end of the call, he was like, I felt like you grilled me there. I was like, I was just asking questions, man. I just wanted to know that you're doing your job right and that you know this process inside out. So that's what I would say. Make sure you understand the process. Make sure your understanding will give your clients so much trust in you and will accelerate their progress, because the more you understand, the more they progress. So yeah, that's what I do.
I couldn't agree more, definitely. And the amount that I've learned from being on the floor as well, even looking at physically when someone comes in, their body language, how
Of
they're
course.
training, you learn so much more in comparison to just, I know online sounds very appealing, it's exciting, but if you don't really know how human interaction works, and if you don't know what way someone even comes into the gym, or how they hold themselves, or how they get onto a machine, or how to even weigh themselves, talking about food, and you're not going to be able to even do that and transfer it onto a screen or even into a loom across the way, because they're not going to do it. They're going to drop off, and you don't have you know a lot more, and you have so much more experience when you're
Yeah.
learning from these people on the floor. And I think there's nearly a stigma around personal training at the minute, and we still need personal
Yeah.
trainers. We want them on the floor.
Yeah.
It's important for different types of people and different types of clients. Some people want that as well. And I think when you know you're ready to take that step and get yourself onto the next platform online, but that's when you have the knowledge and the experience and the people
Yeah.
skills. I think people skills and
Yeah.
the to back you online. Well, then
I
go ahead.
I was just going to say that, I think when we go to shows, and we see PTs and online coaches, and they can't hold a conversation.
Yeah.
They'd have no people skills because they talk to themselves on Loom all day. They don't have conversations. They don't openly have like conversations and discussions. Like they couldn't come onto a podcast like this, or me and you could like meet up for a session and train and end up talking for fucking 2 hours because we're so used to that environment of being like we were probably both on the gym floor for 8 years before we actually started like online coaching. That's such a long time to be like one to one with people for 50 hours a week. And that's all me and you more or less did, which was one to one coaching with people. You did your group classes where you're 6 and 7 people to one. So
Yeah.
that those personal skills, they come across a lot. And I think that, as you're, this is also a very good message that we could talk about because I think it has a lot of a reference to you on this. Like you're you. Only one curiosity, right? I like to think I'm me. I wouldn't like to think other people would like to be like me because I'm not your usual run-of-the-mill coach. So I know you're you, I'm me, and we're very unique within ourselves because we are ourselves. We're just unapologetically authentic, and that's us. And inside of our industry now, a lot of people will try to be like, I'm not going to, people don't try to be like me. I know they don't. A lot of people try to be like you. Okay. They really do. And I think it doesn't come across well. Like if you're going to be a coach, just be yourself. Like when you come across online, when you speak in your camera, when you're setting up your business, don't try to be a Ciara. Please don't try to be a me. Just be yourself because that's the best way that you can be authentic. When people meet you in person and when people come to see you or people meet you, like whatever it might be, and you are you. And one situation always comes to mind when I talk about this. I remember I did a consultation with someone before, and I haven't like uploaded an episode in a long, long time, Elite Coaching Podcast, and we're gonna start it up with the new coaching company because we only done our rebrand recently. But someone listened to every single one of my podcasts, I think like 20 episodes on it, and she came onto a consult call and ran through the full consultation with me. At the end of the consultation call, she said, "You are who you say you are." And I was like, "Excuse me?" Because I listen to every single one of your podcasts and you don't change. Like your character is who you are. And I respect that so much because in today's industry, there's so much false personification of who people are. You are who you say you are. And I really respect that about you. Like you're a really caring person in your podcast and how you deliver things. And when we're talking for an hour on a console call, like you never broke character because that's who you are. And people pick up on that. If you're putting up Instagram stories and reels and you're not being yourself, people will pick up on that. And if you want, like, I suppose we could both probably vouch for this. Your best piece of advice we could probably both give to someone starting off as a coach is just be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else. Just be yourself and your own personality and your own way of thinking and talking and even how you look. Don't try to blend into the masses. Just be you. Be who you normally naturally are. And that's how you'll accelerate as a coach.
Amazing. Yeah. Always be your true authentic self, and people
Absolutely.
buy into people. Like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, we're humans. We're not robots. And for me, I have stated from the get-go of this podcast, from the get-go of my journey, I am who I say I am. I don't put a fault on online. And I think anyone that meets me, they're like, oh my God, like you're a bubbly person and the energy.
Can I say something on that?
Yeah.
One thing I have to give you immense credit for is you are the person who I met 8 years ago. You've never changed, buddy, and you've had unbelievable success in our industry. Your Instagram has quadrupled in size, your business has quadrupled in size, you're running like you are. I give you so much credit. You are the mecca powerhouse of female coaching, but you're the same person I met 8 years ago. And I think you actually deserve a lot more credit than you get for that because a lot of people who get a fragment of the success that you've got change overnight and they become quite big-headed and they become quite ignorant. You've never ever changed. And I think you deserve a lot more credit for that because a lot of people would have definitely changed and you didn't. You're still the same curiosity that I met that walked into that gym 8 years ago. You've gained a lot more muscle since then, but you're still the same person that
Thank God.
I met back then, which I think you deserve a lot more credit for.
Thank you so much. But Guys, how do I even finish up? This is probably one of my favorite episodes that I've done. And it's just been an incredible journey. As we said, we're never done. We're going to stay like this, working throughout like the next journey, whatever I'm doing next. Of course, I'll keep everyone updated. But from a bodybuilding's perspective, a first timer, the emotional side of things, we could go into a lot more detail. I definitely think that I would love to get you back on and maybe touch on like female hormones, like what we kind of done
Yeah, of
with
course. Yeah. That'd
cycle.
be interesting. That'd be a fun conversation to have for sure.
Sure, like that's like something that a lot of people I think would really benefit from. And just touching on like we could sit here for hours, me and you, we could talk for for literally days on end. But honestly, from me, as I said, like you've always been there for me since day one, and I couldn't recommend anyone that wants to try stage prep enough. And people ask me, will I prep people for stage? No, because that's not my field of work. That's not where it lies. And if I could recommend anyone for even the lifestyle project or what you do, like I couldn't recommend you enough and your team, because like anyone that's listening, I stay true. I don't post anything that I don't believe in, and I honestly mean that. And a huge thank you from me for everything. And I know we said we probably get emotional, but I want to make a little promise. I always make a promise on my podcast at the end. Now I can't handshake you because I mean I'm across the world, but I'll virtually handshake you. But in a year's time, like this time next year, I always want to interview the people that I interviewed at this time a year later, and I'll make a promise to you to be at the next level, to be where I want to be. And I'm sure you probably make the same promise to me. And it's like, if you can kind of set that stone and that level of the life that you want to live, it's possible. And I think we've really shown ourselves coming on here how far we've come, where we're at, these coaches that we are, how much we care, that we're not just another number in the industry, and we want to stand out. We want to be the best. And I can guarantee you this time of year on, we'll have doubled, and everything else will just have uplifted that next level. So thank you so much for everything. And I will leave your Instagram below. I'll leave all the details. But yeah, again, I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done for me as well. I couldn't be more grateful for everything.
I always say, buddy, you never ever have to thank me. It's my pleasure to work with you. And look, as we said from our beginning, we're friends first and foremost before anything else, and friends always help friends. And I think that shows true in our relationship and what we've did and what we've built together. We're just two friends embarking on journeys together, and it's the way it will always be. And my promise to you for the next year is just to keep supporting you as I always have done. That's my promise to you, buddy.
Okay, let's do it. Well, thank you guys for listening, and thank you for coming on. And if you can, please do share, let us know your thoughts. Any questions, you can pop us over a message on either Instagrams. We're always both happy to help. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode. Thank you.